It was supposed to be a normal day for everyone aboard Flight 472 from Los Angeles to New York. Passengers were settling into their seats, families were chatting, and flight attendants were making their usual pre-departure rounds. But what began as an ordinary journey quickly turned into a shocking confrontation that no one could have ever imagined, one that would reveal the deep power of a father's love, the price of arrogance, and the unexpected justice that would leave an entire nation talking. In seat 14C sat a young black girl named Aliyah, only 12 years old, connected to a small portable life support machine that helped her breathe. She was traveling with her father, Marcus Coleman, a calm but firm man who had requested special permission to bring his daughter on board. Aliyah had been battling a severe lung disease since birth, and after months of treatment in Los Angeles, she was finally strong enough to return home to New York for continued care. Everything was cleared in advance. The airline had approved the medical device, and Marcus had spent days coordinating with their medical team to make sure the flight would be safe. The hospital had even provided documentation. But sometimes, all the paperwork in the world can't protect you from prejudice and ignorance. Just before takeoff, one of the flight attendants, a middle-aged woman named Karen, approached Marcus and Aliyah's row. Her tone was clipped, her eyes sharp. "Sir, what is this machine doing here?" she demanded, pointing at the life support device as if it were something dangerous. Marcus calmly explained, "It's a portable life support unit approved by the airline. My daughter needs it to breathe. Everything is cleared with the medical team and the captain." But Karen wasn't satisfied. "It's making noise," she said, crossing her arms. "Other passengers might be uncomfortable. We can't have this on the flight." Several people nearby began to glance over, confusion spreading across their faces. Some murmured in protest, while others just stared, unsure what was happening. Marcus tried to reason with her. "Please, ma'am, if you unplug that machine, my daughter could die. She needs it running every second." But Karen's voice only grew louder. "Sir, I said it's not allowed. You'll have to leave the aircraft if you can't comply." Gasps filled the cabin. One man in the back shouted, "You can't do that. That's a child." Others started recording with their phones. Marcus's heart raced, his hands shaking as he tried to keep his composure. "Please," he said again, his voice breaking. "She's my baby. She's on life support. We have clearance." Karen rolled her eyes. "Then you can take it up with customer service after you deplane." "I'm not risking my job for this." Within moments, 2 security agents were called to escort Marcus and his daughter off the plane. The little girl's breathing grew shallow, her small chest rising and falling weakly. Marcus tried to keep the machine powered as they moved, terrified that even a few seconds without it could be fatal. By the time they reached the gate, Aliyah was fading. Passengers were horrified. Many shouted at the flight attendant, calling her heartless and cruel. One woman yelled, "She's on life support. You could have killed her." But Karen ignored the voices, standing stiff and self-righteous, convinced she was just doing her job. Marcus rushed to connect his daughter to an external power source in the terminal while medics were called. As they stabilized Aliyah, something inside him broke. He had faced racism before, subtle stares, quiet whispers, unfair treatment, but this was different. This was his child's life. He looked out the window at the plane that had thrown them off and whispered, "They grounded us. Now it's my turn." What no one knew, not the passengers, not even Karen, was that Marcus Coleman wasn't just any father. He was a senior safety engineer for the Federal Aviation Authority, specializing in flight operations and aircraft compliance. He had personally overseen inspections for the same airline more than once. And now, they had violated not only basic human decency but federal law. Marcus immediately made a few phone calls. Within an hour, the plane that had kicked them off was still sitting on the tarmac, unable to take off. A communication came from air traffic control. The flight was temporarily grounded due to regulatory issues. The captain and crew were stunned. Passengers began murmuring in confusion, unaware that the man they had just seen escorted out had effectively frozen their flight in place. Karen grew uneasy. She had no idea why the takeoff clearance was suddenly revoked. The captain came out, visibly frustrated, and said, "We're under review. Nobody's going anywhere until this is cleared up." Meanwhile, Marcus was on a video call with a team of FAA officials, reviewing footage and documentation. The videos recorded by passengers had already gone viral on social media under the hashtag Justice for Aliyah. Thousands of comments poured in, people demanding answers, others expressing outrage that an innocent child could be treated this way. News outlets began picking up the story within hours. When Marcus was contacted by reporters, he didn't raise his voice or curse anyone. He simply said, "I don't want revenge. I want accountability. My daughter deserves to live without fear, not just from her illness, but from people's ignorance." By that evening, the airline had released a formal apology, claiming the incident was a misunderstanding and that the attendant was following standard protocol. But the public wasn't buying it. Passengers who were on the flight shared their first-hand accounts, exposing the cruelty and arrogance of that moment. The airline's stock began to drop as outrage spread across the internet. The FAA launched a full-scale investigation, led by Marcus's own department. Within a week, it was confirmed that the flight attendant had violated multiple federal guidelines, including those related to accommodating passengers with medical devices. The captain, who failed to intervene, was also held responsible for neglecting to verify the clearance documentation. Karen was suspended pending investigation but soon found herself permanently dismissed. The airline issued a statement acknowledging unacceptable behavior by one of its employees and pledged to improve training for handling passengers with medical conditions. But Marcus didn't stop there. He filed a civil lawsuit, not for money, but for reform. His demand was simple: mandatory sensitivity and medical emergency training for all flight attendants, with federal oversight. No parent, he said during a televised interview, should ever have to beg for their child's right to breathe. The story continued to dominate headlines for weeks. Alaya's face, smiling weakly in a hospital bed, became a symbol of resilience and injustice. Celebrities and activists rallied behind her, and donations poured in to support her ongoing treatment. A month later, the FAA introduced a new policy named after her, the Alaya Air Passenger Protection Act, ensuring that no airline could deny or remove a medically cleared passenger using life support equipment ever again. It was a groundbreaking reform that would save countless lives in the future. When Marcus and Alaya finally boarded another flight home, the experience was different. As they entered the plane, the crew greeted them warmly, aware of who they were. One flight attendant knelt beside Alaya and said, "Softly, you're the reason we're better now. Thank you for helping us learn." Marcus smiled faintly, holding his daughter's hand. For the first time in a long while, he felt peace. The sky outside was clear, and as the plane lifted off, Alaya whispered, "Daddy, we're flying again." Tears filled his eyes. "Yes, baby," he said quietly. "And this time, no one's going to stop us." What began as an act of cruelty had turned into a movement for change, a reminder that even in moments of pain, courage and love can transform the world. The flight attendant thought she could silence a father and his sick child, but instead, she woke a nation. And the man she tried to belittle used his power not for revenge, but for justice. As the plane soared above the clouds, Marcus looked out the window, whispering to himself, "For every parent who's ever been ignored, for every child who's ever been treated as less, this fight was for you." That flight had been grounded by his authority, but what truly took off that day was hope, a hope that compassion would finally fly higher than prejudice ever could.